My name is Alex Dworjan. I'm an Ansible Solution Specialist, and today I'm going to be talking about the Ansible Automation Platform and everything that makes up the Ansible Automation Platform. Before I get into a demonstration of the Ansible Automation Platform, I want to make sure it's clear what the Ansible Automation Platform actually is. So it really is the entire tool set needed to create, manage, operate at scale Ansible automation. So I know I've talked in several other videos around the tool set, whether that's Ansible Navigator and VS Code combined with Ansible Lint to write and test playbooks in an easy to leverage CLI capability and a very easy to extend capability such as VS Code running in a web browser. Also, I may need to create execution environments, which is that content of the Python dependencies, the Ansible version, as well as the specific collections I need. That's where Ansible Builder comes into that capability. When I want to run this at a manageable scale with role-based access controls, a UI, an API, and logging, that's where Automation Controller comes in. So Automation Controller can manage my credentials, manage the different repositories that I have, connect things together with a capability called a workflow, and then I can pull directly those execution environments that I built and stored in Private Automation Hub or really any other container registry to manage that at scale. So as I look into scale, that's really where that capability of execution environments come in. So I now have consistent playbook runs, whether it's in that test environment running Ansible Navigator, or it's in that production instance running Automation Controller. And as I look into the need to run automation closer to where my workloads are, whether that's in the cloud, whether it's in an edge scenario, that's where Automation Mesh comes in. So this really gives me the ability to run Ansible exactly where I need it to run using all of these different tools to make up that full capability. So when I look at creation, that's really where I talk about those content tools. So I'll again show the capability of that VS Code extension, Ansible Navigator, and Ansible Lint combined with Ansible Builder to really have a fully created execution environment necessary for that enterprise source control. So I can store that signed and secured and ready to go to leverage in my controller environment. So then I need to manage it so I can have this defined automation for my operations teams with the necessary credentials already stored, the necessary repositories that have gone through version control and have gone through approval processes, and then I can run it really wherever that workload exists inside the data center, cloud, edge, and then I can connect to the Red Hat Insights for Ansible to have that capability to see what sort of savings I might have, what modules I'm using more than others, and generate some reports so I can see in a business sense how automation is helping me today. And then when I look into how do I scale this, that's where that capability of Automation Mesh comes. So maybe I do want those executions to occur closer to where those workloads are. So I can have an execution node in a different data center across the globe in a specific region of a cloud provider, or maybe I need it nearer to a factory floor that exists. So maybe I want one in each individual state where a factory exists. So it really gives me that flexibility to integrate with my authentication sources, but have that execution occur at that closest layer. So obviously I want to show these different pieces. So I'm going to start with the content creation capability and then go through the other pieces of the automation platform. So first, I'm going to start with the create capability and Ansible Navigator and that VS Code extension. So as you can see, I do already have VS Code pulled down. This is running on a code server in a web browser, and I do have the Ansible extension already installed. As you can see, I've set it up for fully qualified collection names to leverage Ansible Navigator and my execution environment, which I'll talk about in a bit. This is already set up for me, so everything's running. Maybe I want to use Ansible Navigator to see what's available for me. So I can just do simple Ansible Navigator. This will open up that text user interface, which gives me the capability to look at the different collections that are available to me as this particular user. So in this case, I'm using that text user interface to look at all the available collections. This will give me the collections, the versions, and all the documentation. So maybe I want to see the Cisco iOS collection. I can just do Shift:8 and then just jump around to the different modules to see exactly what's going on. So I can see all the different tags, all the different information, the docs. So basically there's a way to see the docs at a very high level without needing to jump into a web browser or anything like that. So similar to running Ansible doc from the command line. But now I can see exactly what's available to me in the exact versions And obviously I can dive into some deeper capability like the actual packages installed in that image as well if I so desire. So I can jump into see, what Python packages are available, what system packages are available by navigating through that text user interface. This is also my capability to run playbooks. So I can do it either through this text user interface or I can just do it from the command line to run different playbooks that are available to me. So I can exit out of this and I can do Ansible Navigator run and then a particular playbook name. Or since I have VS Code set up and the VS Code extension set up, I can actually do this directly from a playbook that I've got set up. So in this case, I want to run patching on RHEL, same thing on Windows. So it doesn't really matter what different domain I've got set up. I can use Ansible Navigator and this VS Code extension. So in this case, I'm just going to right click, run Ansible Playbook via Ansible Navigator run, and you'll see this opens up and starts that playbook process. So I'm using the text user interface. You can set it up to run the normal standard out way of Ansible Playbook of old, but as you can see, this is going to start running through my patching process across my different servers. So this is that easy to use CLI-based way to write playbooks, see Ansible lint across those. So obviously as I'm doing this, I've got Ansible lint enabled so I can make sure I'm leveraging syntactically best practices, and then I can even run playbooks to make sure they're working properly before I even push them to version control. And in this case, I do have all of my repositories, in this case in Git, already set up so I can go through that committing process directly from here, pull requests, all of that from a simple, easy to use UI. So obviously I talked about how I'm already leveraging my particular execution environment. So that's where Ansible Builder comes in. So Ansible Builder is designed to basically define what my execution environment looks like within execution environment.yaml. I have a base image that I'm building off of, which in this case is just a RHEL 8 base image with Ansible 2.14 already set up in it. That's the latest version at time of recording. And then I'm going to build off of a builder image that again helps that process to pull it all together. I've got an ansible.config to set up the connection to my private automation hub with the appropriate token so I can authenticate. And then I've got my specific dependencies that I'm adding in. In this case, I'm only adding in a few collections, but I can also add in additional Python requirements, system requirements, or really any sort of additional steps. So I've got a couple execution environments where I add in some Git credentials and things like that. So it really gives you a ton of flexibility to design this exactly as you want. And then for that requirements.yaml, I've defined exactly what collections and only the collections that I want built in. I can add in versions as well. And then it's as simple as running Ansible builder, build, and then tag it with this particular image. In this case, I normally tag it with whatever my registry is, and then give it some sort of name. So this could be controller EE, and then a tag, so 2.0. Then it will go through that build process finish, and then I can push that to that management plane, which is Private Automation Hub. So now we'll shift to that management plane, and I want to run through Automation Controller as well as Private Automation Hub. So now let's look at that management plane and Automation Controller to start off. So this gives me that UI, API, role-based access control to really extend out my capabilities of automation to users that may not be familiar with Ansible or the ability to write playbooks. So obviously I've already got Automation Controller up and running. As you can see, I pulled in a number of hosts, but I want to step through some key pieces. So I've already set up different organizations, users, and teams. In my case, I've got that set up as an admin user. I have LDAP authentication, in my case, to IDM, but this could be Active Directory, Azure AD. We've got a lot of variety in terms of authentication sources. So I've already set up all the different team mapping, individual user maps, as well as organizations, so that role-based access control is already available. So the organization level sets administration for the pieces of controller itself. So I can create project admins or job template admins so they can edit those pieces, while teams provide the role-based access control to use credentials, execute job templates, and actually use the different automation pieces. So I've got an application development team that has those different roles set up for them. So you can see I've got overall sysadmins, and then I've got the individual roles for, as I said, executing a job template, using an inventory, updating a project. So this gives me that capability. So I'll log in very quickly as another user. And you'll notice the UI, will look the same. I'll have significantly less access as I log in. So you can already see I have fewer hosts, fewer inventories. I don't have all the administration capabilities. As you saw before, I can't touch the settings. And I only see really the teams that are available to me rather than all of the teams that are there. This is a great way to limit access. I don't have edit access to a lot of these jobs, and I'll actually walk through this build Linux report in a second. But this is how I can set up those access controls to just execute, just utilize credentials. In this case, I don't even have any credentials available for me to see, yet I can still run automation. So again, it provides that ability to provide access to different systems without ever exposing the credentials to any of your end users as well. So I'm going to log back in as myself as an admin user and walk through that inventory process. So ultimately, I want to provide out to most users job templates or workflow job templates as a way to run automation. But in order to do that, I need to have really three pieces: an inventory to run against, so I know what hosts I want to manage; projects, so I can pull from some sort of Playbook repository, some sort of Git version; and then credentials to actually access those systems. So I want to start off first with inventories. And as you can see, I've got multiple inventories here. In this case, I want to look at my satellite inventory that I've set up. I can leverage both static as well as dynamic inventories. In this case, I have set up a dynamic inventory here with Red Hat Satellite as that source. So I'm pulling directly from Red Hat Satellite. I've got it set up to pull anytime I run a playbook from this. I can manually sync this. I could set this to run as a schedule, but this is my remote inventory source. As part of this, I also pull specific information directly from Red Hat Satellite. So if I go into an individual host that's been pulled in, you can see that a lot of information is automatically populated. So I'm not manually putting any of this information in. This comes directly from that source, whether it's VMware, Red Hat Satellite, Azure, AWS, or something like the ServiceNow CMDB. I get all these variables in, and now I can leverage these in my automation as well. So I don't have to regather this information during a playbook one. This is all available to me as I'm trying to write some of my automation. So as I write that automation, I'm generally storing it in some sort of version control system like Git, but I need to be able to access it to run that automation. That's where the idea of a project comes in. I can have as many projects as I want. So this is a great way to segment out different editing and admin capability to your playbook. So maybe your networking team has a different repository from your Linux or from your Windows or from your Edge team. So I can jump into my Edge project, see that it's set up, a specific organization has access to it. I can see exactly the URL I'm pulling from. I can set up a different source control branch. If I have a dev branch versus a main branch, all of that can be set up. And I can also assign credentials if it's a private repository. So all of that can be enabled from here. And again, I have this set to update revision on launch, which means anytime I run a playbook from this source, I'll pull down the latest version. And I can see again exactly what revision version is currently stored in Automation Controller. The last piece to really pull this all together are credentials. I can have all kinds of credential types. I can create my own custom credentials, sometimes to access specific API or other sources, but really it comes down to the main source being a machine credential. Machine credential is generally what I use to SSH into a Linux server, WinRM, or even if I want to use Network CLI to connect to a Cisco iOS device, that's where the machine credential comes in. So as you can see, this machine credential already exists. I've got a specific username set up. That password and private key are encrypted. I can't get access to it. Even if I try to edit it, I can't see those particular sources. So that's not available to me. So maybe I want to use that particular credential. Maybe I've already got a job set up. So in this case, I have that build Linux report job that I showed before as the Tower Linux user. And you can see here, I've already got that Ansible Linux service account set up. I've got a specific inventory already set up. So in this case, I'm pulling from Red Hat Virtualization, a specific Git project. Everything's already set up for me as the end user. I've already assigned who can get access to this user or to this particular job. And we operate under the least privileged user concept. So unless I specifically give you access, you don't get access to these jobs. I can set up notifications to email, HipChat, Slack for job start or job success if I need to track that. I could schedule this job to run on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. I can see the results of this particular job, and I can ask a human readable question to the end user. So in this case, I've already set up a multiple choice question, which really is easy as, do you want a detailed report to be run? So I could either run it from that old screen, or I can click this launch template button, answer this very basic question of, yes, I want a detailed report, and then launch. So this will then run that job. I can see the output. I can see all the results as I run this job, because now I can leverage not just the role-based access controls, but the logging capability. So I can see who launched the job, what inventory it was run against, again, the project that it was pulled from, and as this actually starts running, I can see exactly when I ran the job, and it'll even give me the revision version of that repository as I pull it in as well. So I'll know exactly what I provided as a variable, and I'll see exactly what revision this ran against, so I don't have to worry about what exact playbook did this run against at that exact time. So I've got full audit capability in terms of my automation. This will take a little bit as it goes through, but obviously, again, this provides the ability to go back not just to the job that's run right now. I can look at a job that ran earlier and see, successes, failures. I can jump in and see, all right, when was this playbook run? Who ran it? That exact revision of the repository at that exact time. And I can even see, well, what virtual machine did they get rid of? All of that's available to me. So I don't have to worry about trying to dig through CLI or hope someone saved it. It's all stored here, and it can all be exported to something like Splunk for log aggregation. Well, maybe I also want to aggregate together multiple job templates into something called a workflow. So this gives me that capability to really expand out some of my capabilities so I can map a full IT process. So that's where something like a workflow comes in. In this case, I've got a workflow for a multi-hypervisor provisioning capability. Again, I still have that access, notification, schedules, and survey capability, but the new capability here is the visualizer. This is where I can stitch together multiple job templates that I've already created. So as you can see, I tie together, ServiceNow, provisioning across VMware, Red Hat virtualization in Azure, configure the server so it's properly subscribed, it has the appropriate repositories enabled. It even goes through the process of installing an application, connecting to a load balancer, emailing, all those capabilities. So I can stitch this together by simply adding in either on success, on failure, or always. So maybe if I'm running a patching job, I want to on failure, restore from a snapshot, I could do that through this capability. And then I can add all kinds of different node types. So I can add an approval node so it waits until someone says yes, continue, such as before a patching job, or I can pull other job templates or even an entire workflow into this particular workflow. So it really gives you that ability to map entire IT processes. And obviously, as I've gone through this, most of this has been through the UI and button clicks. But what if I want to do this some other way? What if I want to provide access to launch these jobs from somewhere else? That's where the API comes in. So the API is fully browsable, and it gives you that capability to create all of these pieces from anything else. So we actually have collections called Ansible.controller that can help you create all of these pieces, leveraging that API and using playbooks to create all those credentials, job templates, workflow job templates. But then that gives me also the ability to, rather than through the UI clicking launch and answering those questions, I can actually do it through some other interface such as ServiceNow. So I could have a ServiceNow service catalog set up that can actually run that job, answer those exact same questions, pass it to the automation controller API, and have that exact same capability. So it allows you to use existing processes and existing business rules that you've set up while still leveraging the extensible capability, access control, and credentials stored in Automation Controller itself. So as I kind of talked about, as you can see, I've got this execution environment capability tied to this particular job template. Well, this is being pulled from my Automation Hub, and you can see there's a specific image that is tied here. Well, Automation Hub is part of that management layer. So I have Automation Hub set up, and this is where I can store all of the collections and execution environments that I want to be available to my end users. So I have some that I've created, some that I've pulled directly from Red Hat, so from Public Automation Hub, some that I've pulled from Galaxy. There are some community collections that I use, and there are some validated collections that we provide out of the box to do some more operational capabilities. So I haven't pulled in every single collection that exists either in Galaxy or Public Automation Hub. These are just the technology pieces that I need stored in my environment. So for some reason, the public internet goes out, I still have all these collections available to me, and I also have the execution environments available to me as well. So that Ansible builder process that I showed before, I can do that build and then push my execution environment directly to here with the specific versions and have this available to end users. So as you can see, I can leverage Podman to pull this execution environment. I can leverage Docker, but basically this gives me that ability to have the exact same execution environment across all of my different automation controllers, across all my different testing environments as well. And I can have it set up where I can pull from the supported Red Hat repositories as well using my Red Hat credentials. So this really gives you the ability to manage your entire automation operational standpoint, from credentials to role-based access controls to actually running the automation, including the behind-the-scenes execution environments. So this really is that full layer to leverage for your automation. So the last piece is that ability to scale. That's where the concept of automation mesh comes in. That's where the concept of execution environments really starts to take off. So within Automation Controller, I have this topology view. I do have my traditional hybrid nodes, so basically acting as the UI API as well as the execution capacity, but I've also extended out the capability to execute jobs at a more remote location. So this execution node could exist in my Azure environment, so I want all my Azure VM maintenance to go through this execution node, and then the jobs to actually run from there. So it gives you that capability, but I don't have to worry about setting anything extra up on this node in terms of Python environments or anything like that because of the execution environment capability. So as long as it has access to pull directly from my private automation hub, I can use what's already set up. I don't have to install the individual collections I want to use. I don't have to install the additional system or bind-app requirements or the Python requirements because those are all contained inside my private automation hub. So maybe I just want to pull that controller EE execution environment, which as you can see, I don't have existing on my development server today. So I'll prove it. But maybe I want to pull that down and I can just do that simple podman pull the latest version. I've already logged into this registry, so you may have to do podman login beforehand, but I can simply do that podman pull. It will pull that execution environment down, and now I can be off and running in terms of testing and developing with this execution environment. So it makes that setup process for every dev server, every test server, every operational server significantly easier. So I can scale not just my operations, but also scale the capability to run and test my individual playbooks. So it really gives you a lot of capability. So the last piece of what's available as part of the Ansible Automation Platform is what's available through console.redhat.com. So this is where I can choose the specific collections that I want that have been gone through that partner and certification process. So as you can see here, there are at this time 138 total collections that exist. They've all gone through that signature process that I talked about. And I can select exactly which collections that I want to sync down into my private automation hub. So I can either look through the list of collections or the list of available partners to see exactly what type of collections I want to pull down. I can also look into really the health of my automation. So if I want to look at specific reports, I can either look at things like the automation calculator to see what sort of savings I'm achieving. I can look at the specific modules that I'm using or most used modules. So I've got a lot of flexibility to see really the details around how I'm using automation today across different organizations, across different time periods. And maybe I care about future ideas of how I might be able to save. If we want to expand into patching, if we want to expand into provisioning or backups, I can do that through the cloud platform. And obviously I can also look in more detail in terms of the automation calculator. So maybe I need to prove to executives that I've saved a lot of time, a lot of money by using Ansible automation. So this does require me to have Insight set up in Automation Controller to populate this data, but I can easily edit what my manual cost is, what my automated cost is, how long it used to take me manually, and I can see detailed results of exactly how much money I would save by leveraging this automation. And I can print this out. I can send this via an email or a PDF to share at a more executive level. I can see high level how my organizations are leveraging automation. So maybe I know that the cloud team isn't using as much automation I'd like, or the networking team isn't, and I can see overall, job runs by organization usage. So again, this gives me a nice high level of who and what teams are leveraging my automation. And then I can dive into individual jobs. So if I want to see, just jobs that have happened, just jobs that have succeeded or failed, gives me a lot of options to see, which organization is leveraging jobs, how they're using them, and it links directly into that automation job template. So I don't have to worry about, I want to see the results. I can click that and it brings me directly into the automation platform and that job. So if I get a list of failures and I want to dive deeper into it, I can easily just click that and it brings me directly to that particular job. So great way to see, maybe I'm getting a large number of failures across a similar job. Well, I can dive into that job, figure out what the exact error is without digging through, the logs in Automation Controller itself. If I have multiple clusters, I can see across different clusters. Again, in this case, I don't have multiple clusters, I just have the one, but I can still see my top workflows, my top job templates, my top modules. And this can be helpful if I get a report that we're having issues with a particular job or particular workflow. Well, obviously I'm going to prioritize certain job templates or workflows over others because they're used fairly regularly. So maybe I see, hey, it's only been used once in the last 30 days. All right, maybe I won't prioritize that as an immediate fix. So again, it gives you a good high-level notification of exactly what's going on. And then similar to Red Hat Insights, I can see advisories or policies that I can either remediate, or maybe I just want to see different recommendations for some of my systems that I can maybe leverage Ansible to remediate. So again, a very easy way to see kind of high level through the cloud platform what collections are provided by different vendors and different analytics around my automation platform. So this is a detailed dive of how the automation platform looks today. This is all done using the Ansible Automation Platform 2.3. So plenty of other things that you could look into, including a simple video tour of the Ansible Automation Platform as it exists with some of the new 2.3 features, looking at Automation Hub as well as Automation Mesh. So maybe you have some questions about what technology or what security is built into that. You can look at peeling back the layers and understanding Automation Mesh. All that's included in the description down below. So please, obviously, if there are any questions, please let me know. But this is designed to give you a quick and easy idea of really what's contained in the automation platform and how I can leverage some of those different pieces. So thank you for taking the time out to learn a little bit more about what the automation platform is and try to take advantage of all of this different capability to provide a seamless development, testing, and operational Ansible environment. Thank you.